What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for January 17, 2025. Audio and video. I'm so used to saying audio that I'm still saying that in the intro here. But I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great weekend. Hopefully the mic works. We've had a couple different technical difficulties every time we've gone live with these SmackDown reviews and WrestleRant radios and hashtag AskGSMs and stuff like that. Still trying to work out the kinks and the technical difficulties and stuff like that. But hopefully it's working and you can hear me well and you can see me well. And sometimes we haven't had a background. Sometimes when we have Mr. Marceau on for WrestleRant Radio doesn't come through clearly entirely on my end. Sometimes my mic doesn't go through. Sometimes it's muted. But it should be fine now as we talk SmackDown from last night, which I thought was an improvement of an episode over last week. The first week I thought was very good. I thought they spaced things out well. They timed things out well for their first ever 3-hour SmackDown at the onset of 2025. Last week, not so much. Last week, it felt like there was a lot more filler than usual. And honestly, that was only a week ago, but I couldn't even really tell you what was worth watching from last week's show. I know we had that really good women's Fatal 4-Way match. We had a new number one contender crowned in Bayley, who got her shot on this show. But beyond that, I can't really point to you any specific match or moment from last week's SmackDown that I thought was worth watching. This week was a bit different. This week, they did not advertise one of their biggest matches on the show, which we'll talk about. Kevin Owens and Rey Mysterio, rather. A Raw superstar, but at this point, who gives a shit? They don't give a fuck about the brand split stuff, so why should we? They did that match for the first time ever here tonight. Not tonight, last night, rather, in San Diego. But they've had Fatal 4-Ways, tag team matches, Royal Rumbles, and stuff like that. A lot of different multi-man matches between the two over the years, but never a one-on-one match until last night. So there was nothing at stake. Obviously, Kevin Owens thinks he's the WWE champion. He's got the Winged Eagle WWE Championship belt. But we had that match last night, which we'll get into. We also had our main event for the WWE Women's Championship, Bayley and Tiffany Stratton. I almost said Nia Jax because I was so used to saying Nia Jax as that WWE Women's Champion for so long, but it's Tiffy time now. We got a new WWE Women's Champion as of 2 weeks ago in Tiffany Stratton, and they collided last night for the WWE Women's Championship in what I thought was a very, very good matchup. The return of Solo Sikoa, which was kind of the big hook coming into the show last night, and we really didn't get anything. I mean, just to spoil it here for those that did or did not watch the show, Solo Sikoa came out to just booze, obviously, got a great heel reaction, but said nothing. He stood there for about a minute before walking off, and that was it. We did not hear from Solo Sikoa. Now, we did hear from Jacob Fatu, the now former Bloodline Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga with them. Tongalo is out right now. I'm not really sure Bronson Reed would be with them, even if he was clear to compete. But obviously, it was just those two in the ring. We did hear from Jacob Fatu, and he cut a fucking awesome promo, running down how they're going to dominate the WWE landscape on SmackDown and stuff like that. Just immediately showing up Solo Sikoa, who obviously said nothing, but even if he did say something, it really wouldn't make much of a difference. I thought Jacob Fatu had a standout showing in the microphone last night. So the overall show was fine. I thought they did a better job than last week of kind of filling the 3 hours, doing some stuff that was important. We had a WWE Women's Championship main event, like I said. We had Rey Mysterio on the show, and without Rey Mysterio, and it wasn't really just the fact that Rey Mysterio was on the show, but he was the hometown hero on the show. He's from San Diego, so he appeared in the opening segment. He started off the show. He had a match later on in the night. Without all of that stuff, this would have been a considerably weaker show. And they really haven't done a great job of advertising stuff in advance. I feel like they've advertised less stuff for SmackDown in advance than they have in the past. And now the show's 3 hours. And they're using the 3 hours to set stuff up that night. So Owens and Rey Mysterio, even if they did advertise that, would have made no sense had they advertised it a week in advance because Rey Mysterio is a Raw guy, so why would they do that match? But they explained it in the opening segment on the show. It's kind of like what they've done with Raw in the past. A lot of the times with Raw, in the last number of years, 12, 13 years, whatever, they would have an opening segment, and that would set up a match for later on in the show. Last week, that number one contenders match, that Fatal 4-Way, where the winner went on to challenge Tiffany on this show for the WWE Women's title, like I mentioned, that was an impromptu Fatal 4-Way. They did not advertise that in advance either. So it's kind of hard to give people an incentive to tune into this show, and they don't know what they're getting until they tune in. And sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes it can be a bad thing. If they don't really know what to look forward to, you don't have to advertise the entire card in advance, but just a few key matches. And I like the Motor City Machine Guns. I think they're great. Them against Los Garza is not a good enough hook for people to tune into the show. I mean, the real coup de grace of the show was Bayley and Tiffany, and thankfully they did advertise that. That was not an impromptu match for the WWE Women's title. But they got to do more. I mean, I feel like the biggest hook coming into the show, like I said, was the Solo Sikoa return, and that ended up being a whole bunch of nothing. He said nothing. He was out there to say nothing. And obviously, they're dragging out the storyline, but here's the problem. They've been dragging out the bloodline stuff for years. Sometimes it's really compelling, sometimes it's hard to give a shit. And currently, at this stage of the storyline, for me anyway, it's hard to give a shit. And I feel like they could do a better job of, moving that along, regardless of what the end game is. Maybe the end game is Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa at WrestleMania. But you would think if Solo Sikoa is out there to, you know, make a statement or whatever the intention is with his direction moving forward, you would think Jacob Fatu would realize this guy's a loser. He's lost really whenever it's mattered most in the past 6 months or just really ever. You would think he would have dropped him on the spot as soon as Solo hit the ring, not even give him a chance to walk away. And he proceeded to cut a great promo in his own right, like I mentioned before. But why drag this out even further? Just get rid of Solo from whatever group you want to call this now, and have Jacob Fatu at the helm, because it certainly feels that way. We had a couple more matches announced for the Saturday Night Main Event show coming up next week, in a week from today. We will probably still do the SmackDown audio video review on the channel here next Saturday morning. But they did advertise another new match for that show, as well as a segment involving Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the show. Alexis joining me on the chat now. She says, I'm putting this on the TV. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining as always. So let's get into this here. Enough of the overview of the episode. But we open up the show, Rey Mysterio and Kevin Owens. And hopefully you're putting it on the small TV and not the big TV. I don't need to be on the big TV. But anyway, the opening segment on the show, Rey Mysterio and Kevin Owens. Rey Mysterio was out there just to address the audience. He's from San Diego, so he was the hometown hero on this show. And they're just kind of cutting a heartwarming promo. Rey Mysterio is the man without a direction right now. Kind of felt like for a little while he might have teamed up with Penta against the New Day. It kind of seemed like they were going in that direction, and we have yet to get that match. For whatever reason, I thought they advertised Rey and Dragon Lee versus the New Day for this past week. It might be next week, but they're only advertising the New Day as being in action and not that match specifically. So I don't know what's going on there. For a little while, he was feuding with American Made and Chad Gable. We never did end up getting that one-on-one Chad Gable-Rey Mysterio match as part of that program. So I don't know what's going on there either. But Rey Mysterio traveled over to SmackDown, sans the rest of the LWO. He was all by himself. And Kevin Owens soon interrupted. And as soon as that happened, you can ask Alexis, because we watched it together. And Dylan also in the chat now. He's saying Rey and Kevin is going to be good. No, they did it last night. They did the match last night on the show. So as soon as he came out for... I can't believe you're putting this on the TV. As soon as Kevin Owens came out, we were watching the show. I'm thinking they're going to do that match. And my immediate thought was, which is what they did, my immediate thought was they've never had a match before. And I know this because Kevin Owens has brought this up several times before. He's had a lot of bucket list items as far as stuff that he wants to do and people he wants to face. I think even as he said at one point, his ultimate dream match at WrestleMania is not anyone that you would ever think, honestly. It's Finn Balor. And I'm pretty sure they've had matches on the main roster before. I think back to their NXT Championship feud from a decade ago. They had that great TakeOver Brooklyn main event ladder match for the NXT Championship that was won by Balor. It was essentially Kevin Owens' swan song from the NXT brand. So I know he wants to face him at WrestleMania. But one of his long-term goals in WWE was to have a match with Rey Mysterio. And we got that on the show out of this opening segment. So I thought the back and forth between the two was well done, setting up their match for later on in the show. We also found out in this opening segment, a lot like in last week's opening segment, this wasn't quite as newsworthy or as strong, but it was still a good segment to start the show. We found out from Mysterio himself, he's adding his name to the hat of men's Royal Rumble match combatants. So it's going to be Rey Mysterio adding his name to CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, who all declared their entry for the Men's Rumble on Monday's Raw this past week, John Cena, and Roman Reigns. So that's 6 names already announced out of 30. And obviously, people are going to say, don't want the entire field announced. I totally get that. But you want to announce a number of key names that we know are going to be in there. I mean, it's stupid to think they would not be in the match. Obviously, all of those people, if they're free of any championship feuds right now, are going to be in the match. I mean, it's very likely that even when, hopefully when and not if. I mean, if he wins the championship, then whatever, it would be a cool moment. I just don't really see why it would work out timing-wise currently on the road to WrestleMania. But Jey Uso, That match is happening. Jey Uso and Gunther is not happening for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Royal Rumble. It's happening next Saturday on Saturday night's main event. So hopefully, if and when, again, if Jey wins the championship, I'm not shitting on him, but if it would be a cool moment, I just don't really understand why you would do it right now. If and when he loses that match on Saturday night's main event, you can immediately just put him in the Rumble the next week. He can come out on Raw that Monday and say, I failed against Gunther. I want another shot. I want in the Royal Rumble. Just makes the most sense. And I'm sure there's a number of other names. Sami Zayn wants a shot at the World Championship, among other people on Raw and on SmackDown. I'm sure LA Knight might get involved. Braun Strowman might be declaring his entry soon for the Royal Rumble. I just feel like that would make the most sense. So Mysterio stands out from the rest of the names because he's obviously not winning the Rumble. The other people you can make a case for, I could honestly very much see Punk winning the Rumble. Roman, I don't want to see win the Rumble, obviously, but you can make a case for it because him and Cody, part 3, or maybe he goes to Raw and challenges for the World Heavyweight Championship. I fucking doubt it, but you never know. Cena obviously is the front runner right now. McIntyre, you can even make a case for. Rey Mysterio is not winning the Royal Rumble, but getting him in there is definitely a great addition to that match. Alexis had mentioned, my mom says this is must-see Saturday morning TV. You're goddamn right. I am the reason you turn on the TV on Saturday mornings. That makes sense. And she also said you're on the big TV, and Farrah's barking. Of course she is, because I'm the best, and she wants to hear from me, because she wants to hear my SmackDown review. I kid. We then move on to the first match of the night. This was a non-title matchup. I know they're officially announcing Naomi as one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team titles now, or Tag Team Champions now. But in my book, I mean, the website isn't always accurate, but on WWE.com, they're still listing Bianca and Jade as the WWE Tag Team Champions. They never quite made it clear on SmackDown that Naomi was only an interim WWE Tag Team Champion. And on the Jade Cargill front, by the way, before they set up this match, or they already announced the match earlier in the day, but before they did the match, they had a backstage segment with Bianca and Naomi. And Bianca asked Naomi, any leads on the Jade Cargill case, which has been ongoing for 2 months, by the way. Naomi said, no, I asked Nick Aldis, and there's no leads on the case. Listen, if you're a WWE superstar, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, what have you, and we've had a lot of backstage attacks on WWE TV in the last couple of months. If you're a WWE superstar and get attacked backstage, you do not want this company looking in to who potentially attacked you. They would do a fucking terrible job. An absolutely abysmal job. This woman has been on the shelf, attacked for 2 months now, and they don't have a single lead as to who could have done it. I know it was Bianca who ruled out Chelsea Green. I think it was Chelsea Green was in the ring first of all when Jade got attacked months ago. But they ruled out Piper Niven and or Chelsea Green when they found out they were by the gorilla position. Okay, so we know it's not them. We all know at this point it was almost definitely Naomi. But to not even have any other leads, like, oh, it could have been Liv Morgan. Because when this whole thing happened, they had even said on TV, oh, it could have been Liv Morgan, it could have been Raquel, because they were in the Women's War Games match facing this woman at Survivor Series before Bayley took the spot. I don't think Bayley did it. I don't think Bayley should have been behind it. But for a little while there, they were teasing that Bayley could have been the one who attacked Jade out of jealousy or whatever to take her War Games spot. And she obviously has a checkered past with Bianca. They've since patched things up on TV because they've, coexisted in tag team matches and shit. But again, they haven't even teased that possibility really either. The only other possibility they teased on TV was weeks ago when Nia Jax called out Bianca, and that never really went anywhere. So again, if this company is looking into this attack injury so closely, I mean, what are they fucking finding? It's been 2 months. No proof of anything, no cameras in the backstage area. I know they're dragging this along so they can bring back Jade either in the Rumble or soon after or whatever. But again, if you're a superstar attacked in this company, do not have WWE look into it for you because they would not find any answers. They're clearly not looking into it hard enough. They clearly don't give a shit about one of their top female performers in storyline. But anyway, so Naomi and Bianca, who I guess are now the default WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, had a non-title match against Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. This was a rematch from the SmackDown. They had a double taping here in Hartford, not here in Hartford, but here in Connecticut, last month. This was on the second taping right before Christmas. And they already did this match. That match actually had the WWE Women's Tag Team titles on the line. So this really wasn't as important. It was pretty much along the same lines quality-wise. And it was a fine match. It's just it felt like a placeholder match. We are ready to move on to the next stage of this storyline with Bianca and Naomi and Jade and whatever the fuck else. We're clearly, I would imagine, getting Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton in a rematch for the WWE Women's Championship. No, I would not do that at WrestleMania. I think Elimination Chamber would make the most sense. Now that Tiffany has beaten Bayley, you could set it up for the Rumble. We have next week's SmackDown and one more SmackDown before the pay-per-view, which would be the next day in 2 weeks over Rumble weekend. So you could set up Tiffany and Bayley, or Tiffany and Nia rather, for the championship at the pay-per-view. But Nia was in this match. She did not, I mean, she lost, but she didn't take the pinfall loss. So Naomi and Bianca went over. It is worth noting, before I forget, they did have a vignette for Charlotte Flair's return. They did not say specifically when she would be back. But honestly, that tells me I was discussing this with someone the other day, like as far as how and when they could bring Charlotte Flair back. She's been gone since the Tribute to the Troop show that I was actually at back in late December 2023. She injured like her ACL, MCL, her entire knee basically exploded. And she's been gone for a long time. And a lot of people have expected maybe she'll be back in the Women's Rumble itself. That's a surprise. Honestly, now that I say it out loud, I think there's a good chance that she could be back on SmackDown before the Rumble, declare for the Rumble, and then win the Rumble. And for a lot of people, they're going to think, oh man, like we're doing this again? Yeah, no, we're doing this again. I mean, I imagine we're probably getting, and this is the biggest marquee match I think they could do on SmackDown for that championship that makes sense right now. But you could do Tiffany and Charlotte for the championship at Mania, which I've mentioned many, many times. But you can do that by setting that up with Charlotte winning the Rumble. Now, do you have to have Charlotte win the Rumble? No, of course not. They haven't had a female win the Rumble twice yet, so she would make history in that respect. Her last Rumble win was 5 years ago, exactly 5 years ago in 2020. No one really wanted her to win then. No one would want her to win now. I don't know if she would get booed. I mean, I imagine she's coming back as a babyface. If they're keeping Tiffany Stratton heel, which I would not have done, I would have just embraced her as a babyface. But whatever. She was getting positive reactions anyway. Now people don't really know how to react to her because she was supposed to be a sympathetic figure during the whole Nia Jax storyline. It's kind of confusing fans, I think. But if we're going to stick with her as a heel and not do a double turn, then Charlotte being back as a babyface makes the most sense. She wins the Rumble, or maybe the Elimination Chamber, or just finds another way to get to WrestleMania as the number one contender. But regardless, she is back soon. If they're already airing vignettes on TV for her, I would be surprised if she made a quote-unquote surprise return. Like, she's been gone for a year, so if you really wanted it to be a surprise, why would they air this vignette at all? I just feel like that would be counterproductive. So that tells me they'll either have her back beforehand, or maybe she'll announce, like she'll pull a Cody Rhodes. Remember when Cody Rhodes, they had those vignettes leading up to the Royal Rumble in 2023? He was gone for a little while too, not nearly as long as Charlotte, but he got injured inside Hell in the Cell in 2022. And then they started airing these vignettes and these video packages on Raw leading up to the Rumble in 2023, saying that he was going to enter the Rumble. They made that certain on the Raw before the Rumble, and then he ended up winning the whole thing. So I could see Charlotte doing something similar. So it's not a surprise when she comes out and wins. It's not like John Cena 2008. People would not react to her like it was John Cena 2008 anyway in Indianapolis, and it's Charlotte Flair, so that's just not going to happen. But I do think it would make sense if they just outright announced her for the Royal Rumble match in the next couple of weeks, saying, listen, I'm coming back for championship gold. I want to win the Rumble. And then, honestly, if it's not her, I would have Io Sky win the whole thing personally. I think Io and Rhea and Mania would be awesome. They've had matches before, specifically in NXT, that were great. I don't know if Rhea ever beat Io Sky. I know people have said that Rhea's never beaten her, and they could tell that story. I think dating back to the Women's Mae Young Classic many years ago. I know they had a match in NXT right before Rhea left. That was for the title, and Io ended up beating her to retain the championship. But if she hasn't beaten her, then they can always go back to that. Looking at the chat here, let's see. Alexa said, worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario for the Rumble as far as what, winners? I mean, for the men, honestly, like I think it's probably it's not likely. But with all the reports of maybe Logan Paul getting a World Heavyweight Championship match at WrestleMania, there's a chance that Logan Paul could win the Rumble. I really do not want to see that. I mean, even him and Gunther in a nutshell, I wouldn't mind seeing. But at WrestleMania, no thanks, as of right now. But I think there's a chance they could have him win the Rumble if he's reportedly possibly challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. So there's something to keep in mind. Yeah, we all know when Naomi attacked Jade and put her out of action. I agree. Alexis, no. Did you know Grant did not attack Jade in Vince's honor? That's just terrible. Dylan said, and you're trying to pop me on screen. I'm not stupid. And then Dylan also said, and then won the lawsuit and the undisputed head of WWE. I'm not even going to bother looking at the chat if you guys bring me this nonsense in the chat. I can see what you're doing. I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. Um, anyway, so we had Jimmy Uso and Carmelo Hayes on this show. This was set up out of a backstage segment they had on the show last week where they kind of got in each other's face. So that was the setup behind this match, the reason behind this bout. And it was a good match. I mean, Carmelo Hayes hasn't really won a whole lot of matches on TV in a while. I know he beat Braun Strowman by countout a while ago. Maybe, I don't know, last month, a couple of weeks ago. Then Braun Strowman got the flu. I guess that feud is kind of over because Braun has kind of transitioned into a mini feud with Jacob Fatu and um, Tama Tonga, specifically Fatu. So I don't know if we're getting any more matches between Carmelo and Braun Strowman. The weirdest part of those matches were they did the first match in Hartford and they did the rematch that same night in Hartford on the second taping. So those people, those poor people in attendance, had to watch the same match twice. And Carmelo Hayes lost the first one. He got squashed, basically. And then he lost the second one um, by, I think he won the second one by countout. So he's faced Sami Zayn since then. Carmelo Hayes has been on the show pretty consistently, which is great. He had a really good match with Sami Zayn like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But the guy's got to start winning matches. That's the difference. He's got to start winning matches, and it's just not happening right now. He did not beat Jimmy Uso here. No one won. It was a no contest. I thought it was a DQ, but WWE.com had it listed as a no contest, so we'll go with that. Following interference from Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. So the match gets thrown out. They attack Jimmy Uso. Carmelo played dumb heel and was like, "Oh yeah, we're on the same side." And then he got attacked anyway by Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu. So that was the end of that. So then Solo came out. Solo's music hits. And this was the big return of Solo Sikoa, who we haven't seen since he lost Tribal Combat to Roman Reigns in the first Netflix Raw a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. And he comes out, like I said earlier at the start of this review, and says nothing for a good couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes, it was like maybe a minute or less. Stands there and walks away. I'm thinking, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is what people tuned in for, because if you pull this shit enough, I mean, why not just do this last week? What was the point of leaving him off the show last week and then bringing him out this week just to do this shit? It's really just to drag this shit out. And the problem would be, the problem with that is, if they didn't drag this already out enough, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But they've dragged it out enough. Not the fact that he didn't say anything, but the storyline itself. It's like, I'm not completely sick of the stuff with the bloodline, but they gotta move it forward in meaningful fashion. And so far, they just haven't. I mean, Roman beating Solo on that Netflix Raw hopefully put that shit to bed for now. But, like, where are we going here? I know Mania's in 3 months, so they have some time to figure out where they're going. But just on a storyline, from a storyline standpoint purely, it makes zero sense for Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga to continue following this guy when he doesn't have the Ula Fala anymore, when he has no stakes in the bloodline, he's lost to Roman Reigns at least 3 or 4 different times. Why would they continue following him? That makes zero sense. So, like I said earlier, Jacob Fatu took the mic, cut a great promo. I'm thinking this guy's a fucking world champion right now. They probably won't pull the trigger on that for a while, but, I could totally see him as a top talent within this year, within this calendar year, because he's just as good as he is. I thought he cut a really good promo. That was interrupted by LA Knight, who was then outnumbered by Tonga and Fatu, who was then saved by Braun Strowman. So LA Knight was about to win back the United States Championship from Shinsuke Nakamura on last week's show. We did not see Nakamura on this show. But LA Knight coming out there out of revenge. Technically, we haven't seen him feud with this version of the Bloodline. He did late last year, like last month, when they got involved in one of his other matches. But listen, we've seen him with the Bloodline in general before. I don't need to see this again, quite honestly. I just don't really give a shit. But anyway, I guess it keeps him busy. I would just put the United States Championship back on him personally. But so that happened. Braun Strowman is what people really pop for. Braun Strowman getting in the ring. I would say, enough for the second straight week. This was his return. Braun has been off of SmackDown with the flu shit for the last 3 weeks. When he was last on SmackDown, I don't know if it was the count out stuff with Carmelo Hayes or the following week. I don't remember. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, but he was on the show and he had he got knee chopped, chop blocked or whatever in the knee by Jacob Fatu, or by Tama Tonga or whoever it was. And it looked like maybe it was Solo Sikoa. But they had this great face-off. It's Strowman and Fatu in the ring. That made you think, oh man, like people really want to see this. We kind of saw something similar a number of months ago during one of those IC championship matches between Braun Breaker and Jey Uso. The crowd went nuts for Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu going head to head. And we got something similar here again between Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu. And we actually did not get it. Tama Tonga pulled Jacob Fatu out of the ring, so we did not get it. But what we did get was the announcement that they will have a match on Saturday night's main event next Saturday. So it's going to be Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman, which I'm actually really looking forward to. I don't know how great of a match it's going to be. I doubt it's going to be a barn burner. But if they can book that similarly to the matches that Braun had with Bronson Reed and give us an actual finish, obviously, I think it can be a lot of fun. So that's a great attraction for that show. It's not a championship match, doesn't need to be. They're not just giving it away on SmackDown, which would have been fine, but they're making it feel like a bigger deal by doing it on that show next Saturday on NBC and not on SmackDown the night before on USA. So I think that's cool. And, we'll see where they go with Jacob Fatu from there. Probably, hopefully, ideally building him up for something bigger on SmackDown, whether it be a feud with Solo, who we should beat with fucking ease, obviously, or at some point challenging for the World Championship on whatever show he ends up on in the coming months. A lot of different ways and a lot of different directions they can go with Jacob Fatu specifically. So I thought what they did there was really, really well done. And speaking of Saturday night's main event, as I mentioned earlier, they've already announced 2 other matches from the Raw brand this past week. So it's going to be Gunther and Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship, as well as Braun Breaker and Sheamus one more time for the Intercontinental Championship. So we got 3 matches. There may have been a 4th that I'm missing here, but I would ideally do. I'll get to the tag team title stuff later, but 3 matches is fine because they're also doing a segment with the WWE Championship stuff on that show that I'll get to in about a little bit later on when we get to the Owens and Rey Mysterio stuff. But they had 5 matches I think in the last Saturday night's main event that I was at a month ago, and it was fine. It was a good show, but I feel like some of those matches could have gone longer if they didn't do 5 matches. So I would cap it off at 3 or 4. Do the segment, don't have that last all that long. It doesn't really need to. And then give the matches more time because they do have to deal with commercials. It's a tight 2-hour hard out, so they really got to get out of there quick. Just keep it on the minimum side. Let's see. Alexa sending in a $2 super chat. She says, "You can't hide from us, Grandma." I can if I want to, but I appreciate the super chat. Dylan also said Carmelo is talented, but they need to go in a different direction with him because he keeps losing most of his matches. I agree. I don't know whether that means turning him heel or what, but they do got to go in a different direction with him. I don't know if that means moving him to Raw, but I guess we'll see. Mick Wrestler said, subscribe, view this video. Mick Wrestlers, I know you were on the Randy Cruz podcast yesterday, chiming in, so I appreciate you joining us. Dylan also said, Solo Sikoa has high school wrestler aura. Yeah, listen, he gets great reactions. He gets great heat to Solo Sikoa. But I just feel like they need to do a better job of, with him specifically, they need to do a better job of making him win more matches that actually matter. Because, he gets great heat, which is awesome. They're not turning him babyface. If Fatu and Tama Tonga were to turn on him, there's no way he can be the babyface. He just can't. That just makes no sense. I don't know if there will be a babyface in that feud, but it can't be Solo Sikoa. Dylan also said if Sheamus does not beat Braun for the championship next Saturday, then he isn't winning that IC title. I agree and I disagree. If he's not winning the championship next Saturday, he's not winning it anytime soon. Sheamus just told Chris Van Vliet a couple of weeks ago, he just re-signed a 5-year deal that will take him through the next 4 or 5 years. So Sheamus is not going anywhere. He has plenty of time to win that championship. I don't want to see them wait 5 years to continue telling that story. He realistically should have won it at WrestleMania 39, but they wanted to keep the belt on Gunther. He broke records. That's totally fine. Sheamus deserves a run. I would have just done Sheamus and Breaker at WrestleMania. I've seen people say maybe they could transcend this into a full-fledged feud between the two going into WrestleMania. I guess, but if they do a match on this show, how are you going to stretch out this program between now and WrestleMania? WrestleMania is in 3 months. We already got Breaker and Sheamus on Raw for the IC Championship in November, I think it was. They had another match in the Triple Threat at Survivor Series where Sheamus got pinned in that Triple Threat. So, if he loses again, unless they do a non-finish, which would be fucking dumb, I would be okay with it if it was under the impression they were building to a rematch at Mania where Sheamus finally won. I'd be okay with that. But if not, I feel like Braun Breaker's moving on. Is there a chance where Sheamus could win the championship and Braun Breaker could become a dark horse to win the Royal Rumble? Go want to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship in Mania? There's a big chance of that, actually. I would call him a pretty big dark horse to win the Royal Rumble, but I suppose Time will tell. Nick Wrestlers also said subscribers just subscribed if you are new to the channel content. Listen, thanks for subscribing. Hey, listen, he's telling you guys to subscribe. So if you're checking this out live or after the fact, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button to be notified every time we go live here on the channel and every time a new video goes up. All that support is greatly appreciated. So next up on the show, we had the Motor City Machine Guns against Los Garza. It was kind of like a basic small #1 contenders tournament that we've gotten in the last 2 weeks. So in last week's show, we got Los Garza and Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly were the ones who had blamed Los Garza for attacking the Street Profits, which, by the way, where the fuck have they been? So they got, this makes no sense. I said this last week on the review, but just bear with me for a second. This goes back like maybe a month ago, okay? The Profits were supposed to get another opportunity at the Motor City Machine Guns' WWE Tag Team titles. They get attacked backstage to the Profits, and it's not like Nick Aldis automatically just appointed DIY as the #1 contenders. He was actually not going to have another championship match on that show. He was not going to do a championship match in that show. And then DIY said, oh yeah, we can, like, Johnny Gargano specifically spoke up, and this was when they were teasing tension between Johnny and Ciampa, so that the whole swerve was they were in cahoots the whole time, and they turned heel, blah, blah, blah. The big, twist was that they were the ones who attacked the Profits. They didn't know that at the time. The Motor City Machine Guns, being defending fighting champions, wanted to give them an opportunity, so they did. They did the match, DIY turn heel, they win the championships. But the question still remains, who attacked the Profits? First of all, if you use your fucking head, you would know that it was obviously DIY. They were backstage on the show. They turned heel on that same show. They clearly were the ones who attacked the Profits, but no one seemed to think that. So they had this whole mystery who did it. And Pretty Deadly said they saw it. They blamed Los Garza. The Profits beat Los Garza. Okay. On that same show, the Profits come backstage. Apollo Crews, who apparently saw the entire attack, did not say anything, and he's just been playing, like, oh yeah, that guy did it. Oh yeah, this guy. He's like telling these people, he's not involved in any of this, really. He's just backstage on the show saying, oh yeah, it was those DIY guys. It's like, okay, then why didn't you say anything 3 weeks ago when it happened? But whatever. So then they find out that it was DIY. Cruz told the Profits that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We have not seen the Profits on TV since. Did they take a vacation? Was that information too much for them to deal with? Was it too overwhelming for them so they haven't been on SmackDown since? It makes no sense. So we've had this whole mini thing instead with Garza being pissed at Pretty Deadly. And I like the fact they've given the tag team division more time and more of these teams something to do. I like that. But it just, very little of this makes any sense. Like, why are we dragging this out? We know it was DIY who attacked the Profits, so why are we not fast forwarding to that feud? Where have they been? Did they get attacked again and we just don't know about it? I don't know. And maybe they did, because, again, as I said earlier with Jade Cargill, if you are a talent in this company and get attacked backstage, do not expect this company to find out who did it, because they would do a pretty terrible fucking job, clearly. It's been months and we still don't know who attacked Jade Cargill. That's ridiculous. In storyline. So anyway, Los Garza wanted to beat Pretty Deadly last week. The Motor City Machine Guns beat, I think, A-Town Down Under. And that set up an unofficial, I don't think this was officially billed as a #1 contenders match for the WWE Tag Team titles. But they were talking as if the winner of this match would get the next shot at the Tag Team titles. Okay, so they had a good match here. They were given an ample amount of time. The Guns go over. Good match. I would imagine they do get the next shot of the tag team titles. There was some more turmoil backstage with DIY attacking Apollo Crews or some shit. I don't know what the fuck is going on there, but listen, like I said earlier, this is clearly the next match they're doing. We've seen DIY and the Guns a few different times now for the tag team titles. They did the rematch 2 weeks ago on the show, actually. They randomly announced it out of nowhere, and the Guns were screwed out of the opportunity because of the interference from Los Garza and Pretty Deadly. So why they wouldn't automatically earn another opportunity, I don't know. They had to earn it, whatever. And instead, they're not doing the title match next week on SmackDown. Instead, I think the Guns are facing Pretty Deadly. That's fine, but when are we getting the Guns and DIY again? When are the Street Profits being brought back? None of this has been made known. I'm not really sure. Now, I will say this. If we are going to get a tag team title match again between the Guns and DIY, please, I beg of you, put it at the Royal Rumble. Do not do it at Saturday Night's Main Event, which would be fine. But the key there with the Rumble, it's a pay-per-view. It's a PLE. Saturday Night's Main Event, it's a big platform. It's bigger than SmackDown. But it's not a pay-per-view. And I mention that because we have not had a tag team title match for the men on pay-per-view since WrestleMania 40, over 9 months ago. We've had a handful of women's tag team title matches, and that's great that those belts are getting more television time and whatnot. And I forgot to mention earlier, after Bianca and Naomi beat Candice and Nia, they did advertise for Tuesday's NXT. It's going to be Bianca and Naomi versus the Metaphors, Lash Legend, and Jakara Jackson for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. So I think there's a decent chance we can get a tag team title change on that show just to get the belts off of Naomi and Bianca so we can move forward with the feud or the heel turn, whatever the fuck is going to happen. Just a heads up on that front. But anyway, we have not had a men's tag team title match, whether it be the World Tag titles from Raw or the WWE Tag titles from SmackDown on pay-per-view since WrestleMania, which is when the belts were split up in the first place. That is inexcusable. So I would change that to the Rumble. If they're not doing a World Heavyweight Championship match at the Rumble, and it looks like they're not, they are doing Cody and Owens at the Rumble, obviously. But if they're not going to do a World Heavyweight Championship match at the Rumble, maybe Rhea Ripley as the title defense of the Rumble. I don't think so. There's no obvious challenge for her on that show. Maybe Tiffany has a match in the show. You need more than just the two Rumbles. We have Rhodes and Owens, and then the two Rumbles. You probably need at least one more match. I would have it be the Guns and DIY, personally, just to get them on the show. And I would hope they are involved in WrestleMania in some capacity, but that's just not confirmed. So I would do that match at the Royal Rumble. Mick Wrestler said, have you been Wrestle Media? I am Wrestling Media, if that's what you're trying to ask. So I guess the answer would be yes. And Dylan says, the Profits have to put their foot down or something because WWE just has no clue how to use them. I mean, I don't know what's going on with them right now. I mean, with Montez specifically, I mean, I won't go on a massive rant here, but the fact they have not already branched him out into singles competition is ridiculous to me. He was a breakout single star a very long time ago, coming out of that Elimination Chamber match in not Toronto, Montreal 2 years ago, and they did nothing with that. They kept him in a tag team, and he's done shit since. They haven't even held tag team title. It's not even as if they've been busy in the tag team ranks. I mean, they have been on and off, but they haven't even held tag team championship gold in over 4 years. So I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here with these guys? Are we pushing them? Are we using them? What are we doing? I would just use Montez Ford on his own. Angelo Dawkins too. I think Dawkins has also improved a lot. But they got to actually use these people. That's the difference. So there was a backstage segment earlier in the show with B-Fab consoling Michin or something over Michin had a Women's United States Championship match on last week's show, and it was interrupted by Piper Niven. Chelsea Green won. She beat Michin again, but Piper Niven again interfered. It was the exact same finish they did at Saturday night's main event. So lazy. So they just repeated it. So I guess this Meech and Chelsea Green feud, even though Chelsea beat her for a second time, they're still doing the feud. It's like, listen, I know they work well together, but we have to move on from this feud. At this point, I can't really say anyone gives a shit. I don't think they do. I imagine they gave Piper Niven a win here because this set up Piper Niven versus B-Fab. Thankfully, it did not go longer than 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, maybe it would have been fine. And B-Fab had the funny thing is she had this nice breakout performance, as the commentators called it. And she did have a good showing, I thought, in that Women's Intercontinental Championship tournament a couple of months ago. The problem is, that was over 2 months ago. There's been no follow-up since then until now. So they just put her back in the ring on the show, and she got beat in 2 minutes. There are more talented women on this roster they could be focusing on and showcasing than B-Fab. I mean, I think she has a nice presence about her when she comes out. She's not completely terrible. She has improved. But she's still leagues below a lot of the women they have on that show. So even if it is the mid-card division, you don't need her in the chase for that championship. Piper Niven beat her pretty decisively. Is this setting up another Piper Niven Meechin match? Who gives a shit, dude? Who cares? We saw that match 2 weeks ago, and it was not given a whole lot of time, and Meechin beat her again. Meechin's beaten her a whole bunch of times. Why are we doing that match again? Why are we doing any of this again? Does anyone actually care? And I like the Women's United States Championship stuff. I think Piper Niven being her Secret Service or Secret Hervis or whatever she was calling herself on SmackDown last night was entertaining. I think Chelsea Green in her role is very entertaining. But why are they still feeding with the same woman that Chelsea Green has now beaten on 2 consecutive occasions for that championship? Cheating or not? You would think Meechin would have been smarter to not fall for the same shit 2 times in a row, but I guess not. So, less said about that, the better. Kevin Owens and Rey Mysterio one-on-one. I mentioned that earlier. We had that here on SmackDown. A very good match between these two in the time they were given. Kevin Owens going over pretty decisively. I don't know if he cheated, but he did win. I thought we might get a DQ finish or something like that. Instead, Cody Rhodes, that whole thing with him and Owens brawling and whatnot was saved for afterwards. So Rey Mysterio could absorb the loss. He did lose here. Kevin Owens won as he should have. And I thought for a first time ever, one-on-one encounter, perfect for a television match. It was enjoyable. They had good chemistry, and they made the most of the time that they had. So I thought this was good stuff. The whole storyline throughout the show with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens was the fact that, oh, will you sign the contract? I guess Nick Aldis wanted to make an amendum. I don't know how you would pronounce it, but whatever that word is, he wanted to make a change to the match of the Royal Rumble. And I'm thinking, are they not making this a ladder match? Like, what change could they possibly make? Because it already was announced as a ladder match last month. So instead, they made it clear on this show that they are going to have an interaction, a contract signing at Saturday Night's Main Event coming up this weekend, or next Saturday, whatever. They had their last match on Saturday Night's Main Event. They're going to have another encounter on the next installment this coming Saturday. And Nick Aldis made a comment about them relinquishing their championships. And I'm thinking, is Cody Rhodes ending his run as WWE champion? What does that mean? What I think he meant was it was like physically relinquishing the belts. He's going to take the belts to hang them up for the Rumble the following week. Now, why he would need to do that a week in advance, I don't know. That's apparently what he said. So they're going to have a contract signing at Saturday Night's Main Event coming up this weekend, and Shawn Michaels will serve as the moderator, being from San Antonio. So Shawn having a role on the show should be hardly surprising. He's obviously a San Antonio guy. There were already reports that he would be involved in the episode in some form or fashion, and this is how they were able to incorporate him into the episode. So no championship match between the two on that show. Thankfully, they are saving it for the Rumble, but Shawn Michaels will be involved in that capacity. And that brought us to the main event, Bayley challenging Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship. I thought they had a very good match here. It was like given a ton of time, too, like 17, 20 minutes, whatever it was. I thought they worked very well together. And I think the biggest surprise of the match, because Roxanne Perez, they showed at ringside. They showed Roxanne Perez at ringside. She was on Tuesday's NXT encountering Bayley and whatnot. And they seemed to tease that, Bayley and Roxanne could be having a feud. They went out the show pretty abruptly. They brawled, and then that was it. So then Bayley made a comment during that segment. Oh, yeah, I got to go to SmackDown and win the WWE Women's Championship from Tiffany Stratton. So that told me, okay, Roxanne's probably going to be there. And sure enough, she was. And they showed her a few different times during the match, and she may have gone in Bayley's face at one point when they were at ringside. But beyond that, she never got involved in the match. I thought she might run in the ring and cause a DQ or cost Bayley the win in some form or fashion. She did not. She actually stayed in her seat, or in that area anyway. I think she might have been standing for most of it, but she never got, she never jumped the barricade. She never got involved, physically involved. So Bayley ended up losing. I think it was a clean win, though, for Tiffany Stratton. Her first official championship defense on television was a successful one, and she beat Bayley clean to retain the WWE Women's Championship. So I like that a lot. I thought the match was good. I thought they worked well together. The whole story, as Bayley mentioned, not the whole story, but the big part of the story was that Bayley had never before lost to Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany had never been able to she had never beaten Bayley in the past, and that changed here. Tiffany has obviously evolved as a performer. She's more of a top-tier talent now, even compared to her other encounters with Bayley in the past. And she did a lot of losing last year to Tiffany, but I think they do that I know they do that for a reason, knowing, oh yeah, she's got the briefcase, she can absorb losses. Not always the smartest way to go, but, that's what they did. And now, thankfully, she's winning more. She won the WWE Women's Championship from Nia Jax via a cash-in, and she beat Bayley clean here. So this, to me, I don't know who's next for Tiffany. I would think it's Nia Jax. I would save Charlotte for WrestleMania. But my bigger question coming out of this, because they went out the show pretty abruptly, they did not tease what was next for Tiffany. They did not tease what was next for Bayley. I thought Roxanne might jump the ring and attack Bayley. That did not happen. Again, there was no physical interaction between the two, aside from just going back and forth and whenever Bayley was at ringside or whatever. And Roxanne talking trash at ringside. That was it. It sounds like, and Roxanne was interviewed by WWE.com for their social media pages, like right after the show. You could see it on their YouTube channel and on social media. And she made a comment basically saying, oh yeah, I expect Bayley back in NXT. I invite her to NXT because Byron Saxton said, oh, do you fear that since you came to SmackDown, she's going to come to your home of NXT, which she already did on Tuesday. He was acting as if we haven't seen that before. We literally saw it 3 or 4 days ago, but whatever. And she even flat out said she wasn't afraid of Bayley. She said, I invite her to come to my home of NXT. So I don't know what that means for the future of their feud. I don't know if this is like a short-term interim program. Do we get Roxanne and Bayley at one of the upcoming NXT shows? It sounds like we might. I thought this might be Roxanne's introduction to the main roster. And that could be what this is. I mean, Roxanne was on SmackDown here. I would kind of prefer that just because Roxanne is, a main roster talent. She should be by this point. She's due a main roster call up. But it sounds like they want another attraction for that Vengeance Day show. Or maybe, Stand and Deliver would be great, but that's not for another 3 months in Vegas over Vegas WrestleMania weekend. So they're probably going to do it at Vengeance Day. They might do it as a TV exclusive on NXT TV to boost ratings, or I don't know, whatever they want to do as an attraction for the episode on one of the upcoming episodes. That would be fine. But I don't know, just the way that she spoke about it made me think, okay, maybe this isn't transpiring on SmackDown after all. My other takeaway from this ending here with Bayley losing clean was that she has nothing more to do left on SmackDown. She has lost to Tiffany. She's passed that torch. What more can she do? She's not getting that belt back. She's clearly not the one who attacked Jade, nor should she. She doesn't really have a lot left to do on SmackDown. I don't know what the fuck the future of this transfer window is, but I would move her over to Monday Night Raw. Not NXT. That would be dumb. Full-time, that would be stupid. But I would move her over to Raw. Maybe she can, I don't know, reunite with Damage Control. Probably not. But, do a story with them where they have to work through their differences or something. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you can spin that story, but at least on SmackDown, there's nothing left for her to do. So I would just move in a different direction with her, put her on the Raw roster, see what she can do over there. Her and Liv Morgan, I don't think we've ever seen that before as a feud, Bayley and Liv Morgan, so you could do that. Liv's not going to be busy for a while. We don't know what's going on there, but Bayley and Liv's an option. Her and Roxanne for right now, obviously. But I'm thinking longer term here. Her and Io, unless they turn Bayley heel again, which I would not do, you could reverse the roles of that rivalry, have them run it back. A lot of different things they can do. I think Becky's returning to Raw. We've seen Bayley and Becky a whole bunch of times, so probably not that. I don't know. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Bayley, but it just does feel like, based on how this was booked and how they kind of handled this whole situation, that her time on SmackDown is indeed over. So I guess we'll find out maybe next week or in the coming days. I imagine she will be on NXT this coming Tuesday, though, if they want to further that feud with her and Roxanne Perez. Dylan also mentioned, I think having Kevin beat Cody for the championship, while I don't think it will happen, I think that would be really cool. I agree. I think Cody and Kevin will have another really good match. My problem is, though, I think a lot of people thought if it was going to happen, it was going to happen at Saturday night's main event. And then it didn't. So if it didn't happen there, I don't think it's going to happen now. That's my big hold up. It would be cool if Kevin Owens won. And it's not completely impossible either. You could have Kevin Owens win and then go on to defend that championship against Randy Orton, who we haven't seen in a while because Kevin Owens took him out. You could do that match at Mania for the championship. And if not that match, you could do, him and Sami Zayn for the championship, because Kevin Owens did tell Cody in the car when they did that whole he didn't tell Cody this, but he told Michael Cole when they did that sit-down interview in the car a little while ago, that he had unfinished business with Sami Zayn. And he said, I'll address that at a later date. And so far, we haven't gotten that yet. So, we could see Owens and Zayn at Mania one more time. I would be totally down for that, maybe for the championship. I just don't think Kevin Owens is winning that belt. I feel like if he was going to win the belt, we would have seen it happen already at Saturday night's main event. Because the best part about that show was they had a match. It was good. Very good match. Owens lost. And then he attacked him afterward. So it's like, if you were going to have him walk out with the belt, at that point, have him walk out, as the actual champion. But they didn't. They could have easily put the belt on Owens for a 5 or 6 week period and then put the belt back on Cody. I would have been okay with that. They did not do that. I don't think it's happening now. So that's why I don't think Kevin Owens is winning. Alexis also said, push, repackage, release, Solo, Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Roman Reigns. That's a good one. That's going to stump me. Push, repackage, and release one. Our favorite question on hashtag AskGSM for the last decade. I would release Solo. Actually, this really shouldn't be that difficult. I would repackage Roman Reigns just because he's still an asshole. I wouldn't repackage him as... he's great as he is, but he's got to show some more character humility and some more character development there, because he hasn't really apologized for anything he did while he was the tribal chief, so kind of fine-tune that character. Push Jacob Fatu. And release Solo Sikoa. Now that I think about it, it's a pretty easy question. Dylan says, do we think that Randy will cost Kevin the championship in the ladder match with Cody? Yeah, I could see it. The thing with that, though, I would probably have Kevin or Cody win clean. I know he already beat Kevin clean at Bash in Berlin, but Cody kind of cheated to beat Kevin at Saturday night's main event. So if you have Kevin Owens lose via interference at Saturday night's main event, at this time, or not, at the Royal Rumble, rather, Then he has another claim for a rematch because he technically, again, did not lose, and Randy Orton cost him the championship. So, I would be fine with it, though, if they want to set that up as the match for Mania. I think they might wait until closer to Mania to have Owens come back or Orton come back, and then have him go after Owens. And I feel like that's the Mania match. I know you could maybe do Orton and Owens at Elimination Chamber, and then Owens and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. Um, I don't think I would do that personally. I think that would just be rushing the Owens and Orton thing when you don't need to rush it. I feel like that's a Mania-worthy feud. What you do with Sami Zayn at that point, I don't know. And then you could say, oh, if Orton loses to Kevin Owens or whatever, or beats him, then he can challenge Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Maybe I'm still not convinced that we're getting that match either. I think Cena and Cody's a pretty likely possibility based on reports and whatnot. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what they do. But that was SmackDown in a nutshell for January 17th, 2025. I thought it was a solid show, better than last week. I still do not like the 3-hour format. I just do not think these shows have to be 3 hours. Raw had the right idea, though. Raw was a 2.5-hour show on Monday night, and that was actually a great show. That was one of the best Raws they've done in a long fucking time, between the Street Fight main event, new women's IC champion, the tournament finals, and whatnot. Even that wasn't given a whole lot of time, but that was a good match. The Penta debut, the opening segment, all that stuff was great. So if they can kind of continue to follow that formula with Raw, that's going to be great. But if we live in a universe now where Raw is shorter than SmackDown, first of all, I never imagined we would be in such a universe. But second of all, that's not good news for SmackDown. I think SmackDown has a great roster, but SmackDown does not have the depth. They they have a lot of talent, but they have a lot of talent that's just not over or not really doing anything. Could you fix that with 3 hours? Yes, of course, but I just don't really see it working out that way. Honestly, I just don't. So, hopefully they can find a formula, find their footing with the SmackDown stuff as far as finding a balance between the wrestling and the promos. I can get through these shows honestly if I start them at a decent enough time. If I don't watch them live, I can get through it in like 90 minutes. If you skip all the commercials, all the entrances, video packages, replays, all that nonsense, you can probably get through the show if you do not watch it live in 90 minutes. So, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I think that's completely acceptable. At least for me, it makes my life a whole lot easier and it saves me a lot of time, which is nice. But we should be back here next week talking SmackDown, the January 24th episode, and then we have a go-home show in a couple of weeks right before the Royal Rumble. I don't know if I'm going to talk that show. I'll be in Indianapolis for Rumble weekend, so obviously I might even be at the show. I don't know if I'll talk about the show that morning, but we'll figure it out. If you're just joining us now, thank you for, first of all, tuning in. Second of all, go back and check out my full review of SmackDown here on the stream. We do it every single Saturday. Tuesdays are hashtag AskGSM, and Thursdays are WrestleRant Radio. So like I said earlier, if you haven't already, be sure to drop a like, first of all, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell button to be notified every time a new video gets uploaded here to the channel or every time we go live. You'll be notified every time we go live, and you can join on in, send in chats, join us for some fun, talking some classic wrestling here on the channel. So I'm going to try to hit the outro. Hopefully this works. I'm still kind of working through the technical difficulties and whatnot. I got to go get a USB thing later and see if that works. Just because so far the audio quality is fine when I'm on my own. Severance episode 2 is next Friday. It is. We will watch it. We will watch it either before or after, I promise. We'll definitely watch Severance when it comes out, Dylan, I promise. I'll watch episode 1 later when I see you. But I got to go get a USB thing and try to work through this audio quality issue. But until then, folks, have an awesome one. Thank you for tuning in, as always, whether it be live or after the fact. I greatly appreciate the support. Like I said earlier, subscribe for all this great content every single day, whether it be live or just some videos that we put up on the channel from 2K24 gameplay, Q&A videos, WrestleRant Radio excerpts, live streams, interviews, whole lot more. Subscribe. You're going to miss out on a lot of great content if you don't. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.